Welcome gamers to another video regarding the 1D&D playtest information. Today they have released the third playtest material document and they released a few videos discussing it. Tonight on Twitch we will take a look at the playtest document live and talk about it and discuss our first impressions on that. For right now we are taking a look at the video for the Ardling, the Dragonborn, and the Goliath. So we have three races. Two of them we've seen before, the Ardling and the Dragonborn, and the Goliath is new, but they've updated the Ardling and the Dragonborn. So we're going to react to this video. Also, perhaps some information on the Cleric. So we will take a look at this video and give our impressions.
We've got changes to the Ardling, to the Goliath, and with the Dragonborn. Let's jump into that.
Yes, so we got great playtest feedback on the character origins UA that you and I have talked about in another video. And the feedback we got led to the
you can see that video
of the Ardling
right over there
that appear in this UA. Really, what it comes down to is we are focused the Ardling on being beast folk, and have really leaned into sort of choosing the type of animal that you want your Ardling to look like, and that choice leads you to a selection of traits that reflect that. So for instance,
and that's coming from the feedback. People just were like, they like the idea of the Ardlings, they just wanted to lean in harder into that.
Lean in harder to the animal side.
Yeah.
Because the great feedback we got is that we already have in the Aasimar a celestial descendant person, and the Ardling was previously...
It did seem like the Osmar or Asmar or Aaron, Aasmar, however you want to pronounce it, was very similar to the Ardling, like in origin and purpose within the realm. So I'm glad that they are clarifying this and leaning more heavily into the bestial side. We'll see what they have to say about that.
Doing a bit too much. This was the feedback we got, and reading it, I agreed. We were. This is often something we have to grapple with as designers. We often, want to serve up all these dishes, and sometimes we pile too many ingredients into a particular dish. And really, with the Ardling, it was we don't need it to have as much of the celestial flavor because the game already has the Aasimar. Even though Ardlings are still associated with the upper planes, people wanted more of that animal flavor, and so that's what we've done. And you end up picking, are you a climber, a flyer, a racer, a swimmer, and this gives you a special trait. And you also get keen senses because of your connection to animals, and then a little bit of divine magic.
Yeah.
The Dragonborn revision is mostly all about the breath weapon.
Is this because Fizban's Treachery of Dragons was too good of a version of the Dragonborn?
It wasn't that. There were several factors going on. First off, there were people who were wondering what is the relationship of the Universal Dragonborn, which is essentially the player's handbook Dragonborn is the Universal Dragonborn. What is the relationship of that Dragonborn to the Dragonborn options in Fizban's? It's a great question. And as we talked about in another video, these Dragonborn options are meant to stand side by side with each other. You could choose the Universal Dragonborn, or you can choose one of these more specialized versions.
You can pick the weak Dragonborn or the powerful Dragonborn. No one's going to pick the weak one. They messed up when they did that. It's fine that I think the Dragonborn's breath weapon and stuff was a little underpowered to begin with. Didn't feel all that useful after about second level. But to say that they're both standalone, one's the vanilla and then one is like caramel, one was clearly better than the other. And when they came out with this version of the Dragonborn in the Unearthed Arcana, it was worse than the one in Fizban's. So people were like, hey, we don't like this. You gave us a good Dragonborn. We're not going to use this new Dragonborn because it's not as good as the one that we already had. And if, as they say, everything is compatible back and forth, then they're not going to use your new Dragonborn. They're going to use the previous one that was better. So they had to make changes to the playtest version of the Dragonborn to at least get it on par with the Fizban's version.
Because frankly, there can be different versions of these species that are tailored for different settings, a different focus, and we see that with the Dragonborn.
But they need to be comparable
people really liked
in power.
We saw in the feedback, really liked what we had done with the breath weapon and Fizban's. And so, it shouldn't be a surprise. What people are going to see is that the universal Dragonborn here has a breath weapon that is more now akin to what we did in Fizban's. Now, one of the things that it does that the Fizban's Dragonborn don't do is we let you choose when you use this breath weapon the area of effect. So you get to choose each time, is it a little cone or is it a line? We thought it would be cool to give you some flexibility because tactical realities change fairly frequently, and we wanted to let you determine in the moment what will be most tactically advantageous.
That seems
when
fun.
you decide to unleash your dragon breath. The other thing that we added in is a new 5th level ability,
Yes.
which allows the player's handbook Dragonborn to fly for a short period of time. Because in a way it was always a bit of a gap in the Dragonborn. Of,
Right.
One of the main characteristics of
Dragons
of
is flying.
chromatic and metallic dragons is flying.
Right.
And so I was delighted to add this in for Dragonborn.
I'm glad that they added this in. I like that Dragonborn should have the ability to fly. I'm glad they didn't include it at first level like they did with the Aarakocra, because first level flying is pretty powerful. By the time you get to 5th level, the monsters you're fighting have a way to deal with flying, and if it's limited, like you have to land at the end of each round, then while it's a useful ability, it is no longer a game-breaking ability. So we'll see exactly how that works, whether they'll tell us in the video or tonight when we look at the playtest document. But I'm glad that Dragonborn have some form of flying at least.
At 5th level.
Perfect.
Now, joining the Dragonborn and the Ardling is the Goliath.
Strangely on theme. The Goliath now.
We've actually pondered for quite some time the possibility of the Goliath joining the other species in the player's handbook. And there are a number of reasons for that. One of the biggies is that Goliaths are connected to giants in D&D, and D&D has very rich lore about giants, and just like with dragons, the various different types.
I mean, D&D has very rich lore on everything, so I'm not sure why that makes any difference.
Of giants.
Right.
But the big design opportunity that we had not until now really leaned into with the Goliaths is exploring what different types of Goliaths might be like. Because really the Goliath we've been publishing all these years is the stone giant variety.
Right.
And now this is our chance to explore Goliaths who are distantly related to fire giants, hill giants, storm giants, cloud giants.
Now that's interesting.
And the Goliath also being included here is here also to fill a bit of an aesthetic gap, because we realized as we were looking at the options in the PH, we really had only one option if you wanted to. The character fantasy that you were going for was playing the sort of the burly figure, which you can make a member of any of the species burly if you want.
Right.
But when someone just looks at pictures, usually what their eye will go to for this character archetype is the orc. And we realized we needed a second option. Because for most of the choices, we give you more than one option. And this was the rare case where there was really only one in the player's handbook. And that put...
I mean, the dwarf is short, but still pretty burly. I mean, dwarves aren't known for their slenderness. So, I mean, I would argue that while not tall, they're still a big, burly, buffed race.
Puts too much sort of aesthetic pressure on that one choice, and so we thought that it would be good to have another option there to show that whatever the character archetype is that you're pursuing, you have several choices, and you don't feel funneled toward one thing. And that's
I like more options.
in our minds when it comes to just about every area of the game when you're making a choice, whether it's feats, classes, or here digging into your character's origin. It's why in our classes, for instance, there is sometimes a little bit of functional overlap, say, between two classes, and they might even overlap a bit in terms of the character archetype that they represent, but then there's something about each of them that's unique, that allows you to occupy the archetype in different ways. And anytime we feel like, when it comes to a particular character archetype, we've really only in the player's handbook given you one option, we see that as an opportunity to create something else, so that you feel like you have an actual choice if that's the thing that you're drawn toward.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm excited for the additional giant options for Goliaths.
Yeah, so Goliaths
I am too.
Are having...
My wife plays a Goliath paladin. They're only level 1. We just started a new campaign. And so I'm kind of excited talk to her about maybe playing this particular playtest so that we can get a little feedback on how it works. How she thinks it plays. Now, the fact that she's never played another Goliath makes it hard to do any kind of a comparison, but at least it would allow her to play and we can get some feedback, a little bit of feedback on not necessarily how it's better or worse than the previous Goliath, but more about which mechanics feel useful and mechanics don't feel useful. So I'm going to try to convince her to do that, but what husband's ever had any luck convincing their wife to do something? We'll see.
A number of new options here. Anyone who wants to continue using the very beefy Stone's Endurance that Goliaths have had till now, it's still here, and it's associated with stone giants. Now, there are other options, though, if you select one of the other giant types. We also, just as we have added a 5th level ability for Dragonborn, there's also now a 5th level ability for Goliaths. So just as we viewed no flight as being a bit of a gap in Dragonborn, the gap we identified in Goliaths, who have always been associated as sort of distant relatives with giants, is they didn't have the ability to get large. and so we've now added in at 5th level for playtesters to try out and enjoy the ability to actually grow and get a little closer to the height of their distant giant
Will that
kin.
add damage, I guess? All right, well, I like the changes they made on Ardlings. Well, I mean, we haven't seen the changes. I like what they're saying, their reasoning for making the changes to Ardlings. It sounds like what they did with Dragonborn, and I'm excited to see how the Goliath works with the different versions of Goliath. So come check us out tonight on Twitch, link in the description, and we will look at the playtest document and break it down and figure out just exactly how they work and give our first impressions once we see the actual rules. All right. Thanks for stopping by, and keep on hacking the dungeon.